Welcome to Weeks Ahead AI, where business owners learn how to use AI to save time, cut costs, and stay weeks ahead.
Welcome back to Weeks Ahead AI, where we talk all things business and trying to stay just a few weeks ahead of what everybody else is doing. We are, today though, I think we might be years behind. I think we're going to feel years behind. We're really excited to have a very special guest today, Dr. Gurpreet Dhillon. We're excited to have you here today. He is the Brint Ryan Endowed Chair of Artificial Intelligence and Cybersecurity at the University of North Texas. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you for coming.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Dr. Dhillon earned his PhD from the London School of Economics, and in 2019, he was awarded an honorary doctorate from Örebro University in Sweden. Dr. Dhillon, this is really impressive. Dr. Dhillon is the 29th on the global scholar list. So the 29th smartest person in the world, is that what it is?
That's what appears to be.
Yes, and he's here with us today.
What's he doing with us?
I don't know, but I'm so happy that he is.
I'm just glad that Mitch is not here. We should say I'm Brad. This
and
is
I'm
Terry.
Yeah. We're missing Mitch
We're
today.
missing Mitch.
This may become a regular stand-in for Mitch.
Sorry, Mitch, but we have upgraded. We have officially upgraded. So Dr. Dhillon has published over 100 peer-reviewed articles in some of the world's top academic journals, and he's authored more than a dozen books on information technology and cybersecurity. His research sits at the intersection of technology and organizations, with a focus on managing information security and ensuring the integrity of business operations. But his influence goes far beyond academia. Dr. Dhillon has advised governments in Europe and Asia on national ICT and security policies, mentored over 24 doctoral students, and his expert insights have been featured all over the place, namely, not probably more, but the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, USA Today, Business Week, CNN, NBC News, NPR, and even on the TEDx stage. In short, let me say this. While the rest of us kind of been, figuring out what AI is, or maybe not even aware of it at all, and just waking up to the power of AI, Dr. Dhillon has been using, researching, and shaping this space for many, many years. So it is an absolute honor and privilege to have you here with us today, Dr. Dhillon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, why don't, as we just get started, maybe talk to us, tell us a little more about what you do at the University of North Texas, what your research includes, and kind of what a day in the life of the 29th smartest person in the world looks like.
Busy.
Busy.
Well, as you rightly introduced me, I'm the Brint Ryan Endowed Chair of AI and Cybersecurity, and I sit within the College of Business at the University of North Texas. Within the college, we have departments, and I sit within the Department of Information Technology and Decision Sciences. Most of my work centers around AI and cybersecurity, which essentially entails teaching and research and mentoring students and junior faculty and reaching out into the community to do things all related with AI and cybersecurity. So a day in a life is get up in the morning, do research, and keep on doing it till the time you go back to bed. But most of my teaching work is currently with doctoral students. I'm pretty active with a newly established program at UNT, which is a doctorate in business administration, DBA.
Okay.
So I teach on that program. We have a small cohort of students and work with them for their doctorates. And I also advise several PhD students within our department and within our program. So that's what we do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, you it's all very interesting. As we often admit, we some of this is over our head. So, but that's the point here. It's okay. You're going to teach us a few things and teach our listeners some things, and we're excited about it. The fact that you have some interaction with some of those business students as well, and the other business interactions you've had in the past is going to really resonate with a lot of our listeners. So,
yeah, well, I would love to just dive into the early days of AI and for you to walk us through, what your history has been with AI. And by the way, a lot of the hype has been more recent, and our interest has been really within the last year or so, where we've been heavily focused on trying to learn as much as we can. But as I understand it from you, that's not the case. This has been ongoing for a long time, so we'd love to hear about your journey.
Sure. So yes, AI has been around. Different names have been used. So I remember when I started out, we used to call them knowledge-based systems.
Yeah.
IKPS, intelligent knowledge-based systems. And the earlier forms were what we generally refer to as rule-based systems, which essentially means we created these systems with a very specific set of rules, and we allowed the system to tell us an answer based on the so-called knowledge within quotes that was embedded into the system. To give you an example, to make this abstract concept a little bit more real, one of the earlier systems that we worked upon was called MySyn. It was a system that was developed by Stanford, and it was a medical diagnosis system. So essentially, they went around and asked a bunch of physicians as to how they come to a certain conclusion as far as a cough and cold is concerned. And they took that knowledge and put that into what we call if and then statements. If this is the case, then this would be the consequence, else this is the consequence, right? This is the answer. So we took those rule structures and created those systems. Those were really the early form of artificial intelligence or knowledge-based systems. And then over the years, we've moved on from those systems to make them, within quotes, I would say, a little bit more intelligent, where we could understand and recognize certain patterns. Earlier companies such as American Express and others use them for fraud detection, right? So if I can see a pattern of things happening in the transactions, I can probably interpret certain things. So we move towards that. In the last few years, to what we call full-blown, within quotes again, artificial intelligence systems or generative artificial intelligence systems, which have been popularized more so by ChatGPTs of the world.
Right.
But essentially the logic still remains the same. So sometimes as a scholar of AI, as a researcher of AI, I get a feeling to call it old wine in new bottles, but I don't want to say it too loudly as well, because of course technology has evolved, things have happened. So I mean that's like a 25, 30-year story of how AI has evolved in very simple, brief terms.
And if I remember right, your master's thesis sort of involved some artificial intelligence. Is that right?
Yeah, that was a long time ago where, again, my master's thesis was very interesting. At the Lund School of Economics, we had a thesis option where we would like to do something practical yet grounded in theory. So I was always interested in how language gets translated into pattern recognition and how language gets computerized. And I worked on a system which would train new sailors going out into the sea as to what different lights meant on a boat. So we built an expert system to train people prior to venturing out into the ocean. So that was way back, and it's an early form of an expert system or an artificial intelligence system. There was no learning in it. It was essentially rule-based, because there were rules and we would put them and then people would just go through the system. So yeah, that was my master's level graduate thesis.
That's impressive. If with all the time that you've studied AI, what's one development or shift in the field that's surprised you the most, if there is one?
There is actually. It's being an academic, I like talking about few things at a more abstract level. So when we started out with AI, we all felt that there was a inherent logic in what you were doing. For example, if we were to program anything, we were first trained in classical logic, modal logic, and just look at the general logical flow of statements so that we could do the right kind of programming. To today, where I somehow feel that we moved from this whole notion of logic to more statistical predictability, right? So, and that's how it has evolved, and nothing wrong with that. It's just the evolution of this. So, and 20 years ago or 30 years ago, I could not imagine that we would have a system in 2025 which would take statements in simple English language and look into the possibility computationally of how certain words would come together and how I can put those words and phrases and sentences together to create something new. And that's exactly what ChatGPT does. The large-scale language models of the world, they do that. And it's all about understanding patterns and looking at statistical probabilities of putting certain things together. This is something, well, at least I could not have imagined 30 years ago, right? And that has come as a big surprise to me in the field, in a sense.
That's great.
Well, that is, again, like Terry said, we're a year, or maybe a little less, but it kind of a year. We're kind of like, I guess, seeing that old wine in new bottles. You know, like you say, there's the ChatGPT was really our first exposure to it, and I think for a lot of our listeners and just people in our network, that one of the LLMs like that is really kind of other than just hearing kind of buzzwords and talk about it. That's really been the first experience we've directly had that we at least know and recognize, right? It's probably built into systems that if you own a Tesla, you're already kind of, for example, you know, you're benefiting from AI at some level. But for us directly to say, I know for sure I'm using it, ChatGPT or Grok or one of the LLMs. But again, know that you've been thinking and working on it a long time. I guess talk to us about what you see. Do you see that the pace of change is accelerating, or is this kind of for us, we look at every few months or every week, it's like, whoa, this big thing has changed, or it's really progressed a lot. And that's why we say we're weeks ahead. We don't, you know, it's happening so fast that we're just trying to stay is kind of on the cutting edge in our world as we can. But I'm curious to hear from you, your perspective. How much have you felt like this in the last few years? Is this an accelerated pace, or is it the pace it's always been on?
Yeah, technology, of course, has there's a tremendous pace with which it changes and grows, and the computing power has increased substantially over the years. What took initial developments 5 or 10 years are taking place in a year or a few years. So certainly that is there, and it's all linked with computing power. And our ability to process more data, and also the availability of that data. So I think those two factors have contributed to increased pace with which we are seeing those developments. Now, a hidden question in what you're asking was also, we see ChatGPT, but what's next and where are we moving?
Right.
And how does it matter? So these have all been termed as large language models, which do everything for everybody. And it just fascinates us of how quickly a program like ChatGPT or Grok or whatever it might be turns around and corrects our language or improves what we have already written, or even do other advanced things for us. But then you suddenly talk about a small little company or a small little restaurant or a real estate company and say, how does that help me in a sense, right? What's relevant to me? So I think that hype of the initial developments in ChatGPTs of the world is waning away. I think in the last 3 years, we are at the top of the peak of the hype cycle, and we are probably going to go down. And where the rubber meets the road is really for small businesses like yours and others to recognize that large language models may not be relevant to them. Maybe small language models are more relevant to them. You gave the example of Tesla. Tesla is a perfect case in point. It doesn't need the big, large-scale models of the world. What it really needs is, as far as their GPS system or the bump on the road or the traffic lights, is a very, very small, specific, closed system,
Right.
which takes the GPS knowledge and your location and correlates that with maybe Google Maps and stuff like that, and gives you the exact things that are happening.
That makes
Now,
sense.
that technology was already there. I mean, if you look at Waze, which has been acquired by Google, and now we are combining that with you driving a Tesla and hitting a bump, and that linking it with what's on on a Google map and geolocational information, and you're putting all these things together. And the learning part is that that's stored in the database. And next time you're going to come to that spot and going to say, oh, mind you, there's going to be a bump, right?
Yeah.
So that's the learning part
Okay.
in this whole thing. So yes, I think as we go along, the large language models are going to give way to small language models. We're going to have something extremely specific to a restaurant or a real estate company,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth.
Well, I've learned something new for sure. I mean, I've never heard the phrase, and maybe I'm
No,
behind.
you're
but
not
small language model. We've referred to the large language models often, the LLMs, but the SLM now. I'll be talking about that. And we'll be weeks ahead talking to our friends about it. But that's really interesting. Like you say, it takes so much computing power to. I would assume to. And I know people are starting to talk about how much energy consumption, water consumption, all of this takes to compute a simple query in ChatGPT. Well, maybe for these other things, we just limit down to the information you need and what's going on around your particular business or this particular circumstance to give you guidance and information direction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's becoming more context specific, narrowing the context so that you're not using as much computing power as you would for other things, and then it makes it accessible to a lot of businesses. And I think that's going to be the next wave in my mind. That's what we are going to move towards.
We believe that too. That's what we're talking about and encouraging people to think of. I'm curious to hear from your perspective, and we're going to get into some of your cybersecurity background as well, but this may kind of bridge both. So some of the industries, I used to be in banking, for example, worked for a community bank, but banking, law, the law practice, medical field,
Healthcare, finance.
healthcare, all these areas that are very heavily regulated. How are they going to balance this? How are they going to work through this? And because again, maybe you're starting to hit on it that small language model will be, but how do they balance their security and just know how sensitive the information that they don't want doesn't necessarily go back out to the world when they start interfacing with AI?
Yeah, I mean, regulated as these might be, but I think artificial intelligence in a sense is a double-edged sword, because on one hand it gives you all these strategic advantages that you can think about, but on the other, it's also subject to abuse. It's just like when the computer was invented, you could use it for good purposes, you could use it for bad purposes. I always give the example of a hammer. When the hammer was invented, the purpose was to hit the nail on the head, but the first documented use of a hammer is to hit someone on the head. It was used as a weapon.
Yeah.
So similarly, artificial intelligence.
That's what Mitch would have thought of doing with it.
So artificial intelligence is like that because there is a possibility of models that we train these AI systems on getting poisoned, of them getting manipulated, or certain sensitive information being extracted. And we are seeing that all the time.
Yeah.
So I think there are risks around it, and which really means that as AI managers or IT managers or people who are managing these systems in community banks or other banks need to be careful about. You know, the basic hygiene factors are very, very important to do so within the confines of the regulations, of course. Right now. What it also does is that, you know, AI on the other hand allows us to look at patterns in a wider sequence of events, which also helps with money laundering aspects in a banking environment, identifying the bad actors and so on and so forth. So it's a double-edged sword in a sense, and, and how we manage it is really very important.
It's not that a bank shouldn't think about implementing and using AI. It's just be careful and find the right tools, right? And I mean, they work with the right professionals. What do you recommend? I mean, how do they make sure they're doing it right?
Right. I think co-evolution is the word that I would use. So cybersecurity and artificial intelligence have to co-evolve.
Okay.
It is not one or the other. They both are dependent on each other, and I think we'll be in a much better position to manage this if we are aware of
Makes sense.
The advances.
Dr. Dhillon, one of the things that I often wonder is it seems like the adoption at the consumer level is at a much more rapid pace than it is at an organizational level. And so, you know, the data security concern is always that maybe you have employees that are using ChatGPT or they're using Claude, and they bring it into your organization and they're using it in your organization. And I'm just curious on your thoughts of you know, just is that dangerous? So should they be concerned about an employee using ChatGPT or one of the models? And then the second part of that question is how does UNT in the School of Business think about, you know, those same models?
Yeah, I think to answer, I think they're both very important and important questions, and I don't think we have definitive answers about it. But I think what I advocate always is responsible use of AI and, for that matter, any technology. So I think, and responsible use comes the number of elements that go into responsible use, and one of them is that we need to educate individuals of what kind of things that AI can do or cannot do, and then use it appropriately, which basically means beyond awareness, we need to include individuals in the participation of why we are using and what we are using, and participation in decision making as to what the consequences are. And this is particularly true of small enterprises where it's more hierarchical. Someone is telling everybody else, this is what we are going to do. But I think including everybody into the decision-making process of using or not using is very important, which essentially means that we are intrinsically motivating individuals to be responsible, right? You give them the right tools and they have to be responsible. It's like you giving a car to a new driver,
right,
and say, drive carefully, right?
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Be responsible on the road. What does that really mean? So I think it requires experience, of course, but it also requires hand-holding a little bit. And this artificial intelligence and all the tools that we talk about in a business environment are like giving a super fast, powerful car to a teenager. He's legally allowed, he or she is legally allowed to drive it.
But you can get in trouble.
But can get into trouble, right? So
that's a good analogy.
That is good. Yeah. And we've kind of seen that just in our experience, and how, you know, in particular ChatGPT for me, the more I used it, just sort of the more agreeable it became to my thoughts. And, you know, that's scary if you're using it as a thought partner to always have an agreeable voice.
Right, and I think that therein lies the problem. The second part of your question was about what we are doing in the College of Business as well. I think, and not just at UNT, it's applicable to all universities and colleges. We are discovering all this, So there was this initial phase of rejecting it. We don't want any of our students to use it. We don't want them, and people are
Right.
always talking about cognitive decline and so on and so forth. I have always felt that, it is educating individuals of understanding the limits of these technologies. So, as you rightly point out, the more you use ChatGPT, the more it is in agreement with your thought process, says a lot, which essentially means that ChatGPT and the way in which you are using it is a closed system. Right, so you are working in that room. You keep on asking the same question to those same 5 people. It's going to keep on. After a while, you have saturation, and you say you're getting the same kind of answers, right? So, which basically means you are restricting your span of thinking to a very small space. So, and occasionally you need to get out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and it's very important. So, and psychologists call this double loop learning. So they always say, think of it like a big 8, right? So you are in the thinking loop and you are in the doing loop. So sometimes when we give a tool to someone, we engage in this doing loop all the time, in the bottom loop. But occasionally you need to get out of that loop and say, okay, let me look at the big picture. Let me think, and then come back and do. So better decision making, better use of our tool is that if we, on a very regular basis, go through the whole 8 circle, the big 8. You
Right.
think and then you do, and you think and you do. You take the feedback from the do and go back into the think, and back and forth, back and forth. That is the best way to do. What technologies do, what ChatGPTs of the world do, they force you in the do loop all the time, right?
Okay. That's good. That's very good. One of the things we do on this podcast is that we like to talk specifically to businesses, and I'm just curious if there's a business owner out there who's just completely overwhelmed by what they're hearing and reading and seeing on TV about AI. What's a practical way that they could think about, implementing something in a business?
Yeah, I can talk about it in generic terms rather than a specific business. So I think the first and foremost, I would say, is start with a problem, not with a tool. And I think that's tools are there, right? But if you don't know what you are getting into, it's going to cost you more time and effort. You're probably going to lose your customers in the process because you are not using that tool appropriately. Any decision around that is going to be a tough decision. So you really need to focus on the problem that you're trying to solve, not just because a certain artificial intelligence oriented tool is available out on the market. The second piece of advice is use AI to augment your activities, not replace your activities. So augmentation is critical here. May it be in the form of customer service, may it be in marketing, advertising, or managing your inventory and all that stuff. So we've all experienced chat boxes, for
Right.
example. So in situations where, with no names taken, in situations where you start interacting with a chat box for companies that exist out there, and suddenly it's frustrating
Yeah.
Yeah.
because you're not getting the answer you're getting. But what the company has done is it's replaced their customer service reps with a chat box.
Yeah.
So they're not augmenting it; they've replaced it, right? And what are you doing? You are really abandoning your customer in that sense. So what they should have done is they should have taken, okay, do you have some frequently asked questions? let the chat box handle those, because those are very, very
Right.
specific, rule-based, frequently asked questions, which a chat box can do a wonderful job with. So
Yeah.
you don't need a person in the front desk answering those questions. On the other hand, you can take that front desk person, retrain them for higher order jobs. So I think augmentation is very important rather than replacing.
That's great.
And the third important thing is get smart with the data. I think that's a very important part, because data is all around us. What these tools, particularly artificial intelligence tools, have done is they have allowed us to crunch these numbers in a very interesting manner. So you can spot trends, you can segment the customers in very interesting ways, because the tool allows you to do that. So you're looking at it from that perspective. And then finally, you can, the analogy I use is that you can certainly use a Dreamliner to fly from Seattle to LA, but you don't need to. Right?
Yeah.
You're better off using a Dreamliner to fly from Seattle to London,
Yeah.
for that
Yeah.
matter, right? So it's the appropriateness of use, right sizing the tool to your business need is very, very important. Now, this might sound as old advice, but it's become even more important today in the era of artificial intelligence, because it's just so very easy to use them, adopt them, and integrate them into your business, that we lose sight of why we are doing it.
Yes. That's
Wow.
great.
Powerful stuff. That's great.
I wonder sometimes, if you've had a positive experience where maybe a chat bot, you can tell that they've augmented and they've done a really good job. I feel like now people are starting to use it more efficiently, to where as a consumer, I don't feel as abandoned. I'm curious if you've had a positive experience with somebody who's using it the way that you think it should be used.
Well, it depends upon the context of use. I'll give you a hypothetical example. So,
Okay.
How often would you call a credit card company? Right? Only when you see something wrong with your transaction, you're not happy with something, the way your card was used. That's when you pick up the phone and call them.
Yeah.
Or you go online and start chatting with the chat box. Now, this is where you really need human intervention, because something really wrong has gone on,
Right.
Yeah.
right? And if you get those same old vanilla boxed answers from a chat box, it's going to be frustrating,
Yeah.
right? Now, if it were a simple bill payment issue, you're probably going to be fine with the chat box. So I think the problem that I have seen more often than not from a business to consumer perspective is the inappropriate use of artificial intelligence tools. So in certain contexts it works beautifully, in others it doesn't, right? And I think the role of a human being cannot be downplayed in these situations, at least now, right now.
Yeah. Well, we can get into that later.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
yeah, it's really interesting. Well, we talk primarily AI and kind of how we can integrate it into our businesses, but we probably don't talk and think enough about cybersecurity. And again, not the main focus. And maybe we would probably lose all listeners if we just talk cybersecurity. But it's important, and since we have such an esteemed guest like yourself that has such a vast knowledge on the subject, we'd be remiss to not ask you a question or two about cybersecurity. So, with AI becoming central to business, what's one simple cybersecurity step that every business owner should be taking to kind of protect themselves and their business, their data, their money, whatever it is? What should they be taking? What steps should they take?
Well, I think, I used the word co-evolution earlier on, and I think that is central to security. So I think, let me go back. I think it's also to do with your age group and so elderly in particular, educated and knowledgeable as they might be, have a challenge sometimes understanding the latest and the greatest technologies.
Right.
I can't generalize that, but many a time elderly have a problem. Generation Z has a different kind of a problem, right? They jump onto it and then they don't think through the technology that much. But so these two extreme population groups are perhaps the most vulnerable as far as cybersecurity in the AI-driven world is concerned. So, but I think if you are proactively thinking about it and giving consumers an option, nowadays, if you think about banking,
Right.
I mean, how many banks give elderly an option to actually physically go to a bank, which they can't go anyways for various
Right.
reasons? But everything has been automated or put online or AI driven for the sake of efficiency.
Right.
But we as individuals, I think, have a moral responsibility to these groups of people who are vulnerable, right? And I think that's something that as a society we need to think about and proactively act upon. These are very important groups, which we all are going to be part of at one point in time or the other.
Yeah.
So I think that's one. In the world of AI, I think one of the problems that we see is of trust,
Yeah.
right? How much trust can you place on a chat box, right? How much information are you going to give into a chat box? And this is and technically we call it information disclosure, the level and extent of information disclosure in a chat box, which could lead to violations in privacy and so on and so forth. And those are very real threats to individuals. I don't think we are there as yet as far as the technology and or understanding of those technology is concerned, but those are very real threats
Interesting,
going
yeah.
forward.
You know, what's funny is we focus so much on all the positive use cases that AI
Right.
could bring to business. And there's this whole other side that's, you know, the bad guys have access to the same technology. And I was made aware recently of an event where an elderly person that they had used, the bad guys used this technology to clone a voice
Right.
of a trusted person in that elderly person's life, and they were able to call and they were able to get them to wire money to them, and all of it was generated through AI.
Right.
And it's a very scary, you know.
It is very scary. So last week I was at the Economic Crime Symposium at Cambridge University in England. Was a part of a panel talking about exactly these kind of issues. And one of the examples I gave, you talk about the elderly, but it's happening to business executives. There was a case very recently which I presented over there of a business executive in Hong Kong whose voice was cloned, picture was cloned online, and his assistant ended up transferring a large chunk of money. So those things are very, very rare. I did a piece in Wall Street Journal a little while ago on romance scams.
Yeah.
That's another vulnerable group where cloning of voice and pictures is rampant. People use it to swindle other people. Now, can you protect yourself? Of course you can, but there's a whole new attack surface that has been exposed because of.
And regulating this is such a challenge.
It is mind blowing.
Yeah.
It's so very difficult. Yes.
Yeah. Well, now maybe we stop the podcast and say shut it down. It's too scary. We can't overcome these issues. But no, we do need to be aware of the risks and concerns, and I think we hear about those things and think something like that's never going to happen to me. I'm too smart. But we've got to be aware. We've got to be alert.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where do you think we are in the adoption life cycle in an organization? From where are organizations in the adoption? Like are we 10% of the organizations adopting this technology? Do you think we're in the early innings? Are we?
I think there are several aspects of adoption that we normally talk about, and I think we definitely are at a very early stage. We are at the invention and innovation stage. We are not necessarily at the widespread adoption stage. There is obviously a lot of hype related with it.
Yes.
So I think the actual adoption takes time. Actual benefits that you're going to get from a tech tool such as artificial intelligence is going to take time. It's not going to be overnight. So right now, as I said earlier, we are still hovering around whether a large language model is going to be more useful or whether we need to go more specific to small language models, or the cost that it's going to be in processing data
Yes.
for large language models versus small language models, because it's the SLMs you can run off your regular chips and PCs, and large language models need the NVIDIAs of the world.
Right.
So there is a lot of debate around those aspects. So we are definitely at a very early stage in terms of the adoption of artificial intelligence tools.
Yeah, that's always interesting to me to see, especially when you get to the Fortune 500 level.
Yeah.
At who the early adopters really are, and because it's surprising to me that Apple, for instance, has been, and they've always been. It's part of their strategy that they're a late adopter. They would love for something to be,
Fully vetted.
yeah, fully
And
vetted
they have been
before.
criticized for that.
I know.
September 9th, when they launched their new range, and people were disappointed that
Yeah, the stock price just
exactly. But that's a strategic direction that they've taken, that they don't want to risk losing their customers, and so that's what it is.
I'm curious if you could touch a little more. I'm always interested. I have a daughter who's a sophomore at Baylor, and last year, at least, we haven't specifically talked about it this year, but last year, Baylor just had a policy where they don't allow it. They don't want the students using any of the AI tools that are out there. So, but as a employer of students that come out, in my business, it really helps to have some understanding, because I think that there are ways that we've seen that it dramatically increases the efficiency. And so I'm curious how you think the universities will ultimately, and by the way, I'm on a school board and a local school board, and we're having the same discussions. Like, how do we do this? Because it's virtually impossible to keep kids from using this. And so the sooner we can acknowledge it and put some boundaries in place, the more we can teach them to learn how to use it. But it's a slippery slope.
It is. I think, it reminds me of the time when word processors came around.
Yeah.
And I think we are witnessing a similar situation right now. And there was a lot of discussion at that time in the 80s that what's going to happen to the secretarial jobs whose role is simply to type.
Yes.
Right. So, and then Word Perfect came in, and then WordStar and Microsoft Word. It changed the world.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened when Microsoft Word started introducing spell checkers. And I still remember conversations at that time. People would say, so no need to learn the spellings in school?
Right.
That has not happened. Matter of fact, it has helped a lot of people. So there are kids with learning disabilities of different sorts, and it has helped autistic children. It has helped other people with learning disabilities of that sort. So the tools are always good. It doesn't necessarily always reduce the cognitive abilities. So I think a phased approach is much better than just simply blanketly banning something. So I think that's probably going to have more negative consequences. So I think a cautious approach where we adopt is great. I mean, I do remember when Grammarly came around, it was not looked upon very well that you don't know your grammar. Why do you need it? To 2025, where College of Business actually has a subscription for Grammarly, and it gives it to faculty and doctoral students to use it.
Okay.
Right. So there's nothing wrong with using these tools, but as long as we are aware of what they're using for now. In the same breath, I would say if I were to use ChatGPT or Grok or one of those AI models to write an essay for me, now that is not acceptable.
Right.
Right? That is not acceptable.
Right. So there was Dr. Brown at the last, in February, he made mention, and this really stuck with me. I'm curious your thoughts on this, but he made reference to, how these could affect the lower level employees in an organization and the people that are doing the research or the people that, and so, forever in an accounting firm, for instance, you start out at a junior position and then you learn, and by doing the research and you work your way up. And there was this concern that could this contribute to this gap that could widen between,
if you don't spend enough years learning really the skills in that entry
how do
level,
you ever elevate
how do you
to the
become
senior
the
positions?
senior-
Yes. So I have a thought on that. I think that's a great point that Dr. Brown made, and I think I agree with that. I think what's going to happen is, or is happening as well, certain when I say lower level jobs, it means routine production services of sorts. You're probably going to see them erode. They're not going to be in that shape and form today. All right. So because either they have been automated or artificial intelligence can do it much better for you in a cheaper, more efficient manner, as long as it stays interconnected with your business processes. So definitely that's going to happen. The question is that a bad thing or is that a good thing?
Right.
I don't think it's a bad thing. It's an evolution of work. Right? Evolution of work has been taking place for centuries. Right? From hand-drawn plows to tractors to sprays and farms using drones. That evolution has always been taking place, and we have always adopted it with open arms, and I think we should. It's just that the nature of work is going to change.
Yeah.
And as long as we prepare our workforce with that change, it's going to be okay. But change hurts. While the transition is taking place, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
Right? And I think as a society, we need to be careful that we don't leave anybody behind.
Right.
In that sense.
I want to ask a question as well that's a little, maybe slightly off topic, but I'd really love your take on it. So Ray Kurzweil, that the kind of AI expert, futurist, anyway, I've read some articles about this guy that he's been studying AI and all these kinds of tools for the last 60 years. He's in his 70s or 80s. And he has made over the years lots of predictions about where kind of some of these things will go, and even kind of timelines of when it'll get there. And some of them he's been really accurate on. Others he's missed, but he talks about artificial general intelligence, for example, he believes will occur by 2029. And then he talks about the singularity concept, which maybe you can tell our listeners a little bit more what that means, but he's predicting that by 2045. So 2 questions. What are your thoughts on his predictions? And do you have any bold predictions of some things that are coming and when they might come?
All right, let's go to the basics.
Okay.
And say, what do we really mean by intelligence? Right? There are 4 elements to intelligence: learning and experience, problem solving, mental acuteness, and abstract thinking.
Okay.
What artificial intelligence has been able to do for us to really do a lot of learning in rule-based forms in closed
Right.
system environments, and it has been able to do a lot of routine problem solving for us, right? So when we say that artificial intelligence is going to take over, you are really talking about these two elements, right? I don't think human experience is programmable in that sense as yet,
Right.
right? Mental acuteness, which is really a skill of using reason, is a very, very biological thing as yet, and I don't think that it will be possible to program that right now. So abstract thinking within closed bounds is possible, that computers can do it, but nothing beyond that, because what computers and AI is doing is doing the abstract thinking is more in terms of linking one set of patterns with another, right? Now, so if we understand what intelligence is and what the limits of artificial intelligence are, the predictions are right there in front of you. So will we be able to take mental acuteness or ability to use reason in skillful manners and program it by 2029, 2030? I have my doubts,
Yeah.
right? I have my sincere doubts that I don't think that's possible as yet in the foreseeable future,
Okay.
5 or 10 years. What is definitely possible, and we are moving at tremendous speeds, is to find newer patterns, right? We did that with IBM Watson in the healthcare domain to stuff that is happening right now, where technology allows us to take brain images in 7 Tesla MRI scans and link patterns that they see over there with other patterns to find unique combinations so that we can predict why Alzheimer's disease or dementia,
Right.
or what are the causes of those, or what are the risk factors that a population might have. So are we going to be able to do that? Yes. Now, is that replacing a human being? No, it's augmenting.
That you hit on that concept earlier, and it makes so much sense to think about this as an augmentation of the tools and knowledge and information we already have. So on that front, like the brain cloud interfaces, or Elon's Neuralink or whatever. I mean, those things seem like an augmentation of our own mental capacity and intellect, and maybe realistically could happen.
Yes, who could have imagined that you could put an implant in your mouth or in a bone, or put a stent in your heart?
Right.
Nobody had imagined these 10, 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So
Right.
anything is possible in that sense. Of implants in the brain, can you do it? Possibly, yes. But that's really being futuristic.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. I'm not getting my Neuralink in the next few years. Well, I've always said I've been blessed with a bad memory, but it hurts me sometimes. I need a little bit of superpower help here to augment that.
What do you think, if you had to pick an industry or two that you felt like may have may be impacted the most by artificial intelligence? Say in the next 12 months, what do you think that would be with what you know today?
I think any industry which relies on routine production services, all the routine you mentioned, accountants, but
Right.
accountants come in different guises as well. If you're talking about just simple annual tax return filings,
Right.
right? Do you really need a human being to do that?
Right.
Probably not.
Right.
So there's certain classes of jobs which are probably going to go away, and they're all routine production services.
Well, this has been great. I'd like to leave it with just saying, or asking a question of you: as AI reshapes the workplace, what's a critical skill or a mindset that business leaders and their teams, especially in information intensive roles, need to stay competitive for the next 5 years?
I think my main message on that is build an AI habit, not just an AI strategy. So for all businesses, small and big, more so for the small ones, you need to have AI habit, right? Which basically means that you need to build familiarity with the tool. That familiarity will breed insight into that particular tool or a technology. Hands-on use will reveal frictions where the problems are. Daily practice will help you build intuition as to what could possibly go wrong. So make it a habit. So I think that is what's going to be very, very critical in the future. Now, how can you do that? I think there's some very specific skills that you need to think about. I call it strategic curiosity. You as individuals, sometimes we can't take a backseat. You need to be curious about what is happening, what new tools and techniques are there. No longer can we afford to say that my tech guy is going to take care of my AI. All individuals need to build some level of fluency as far as artificial intelligence is concerned. So I think those are some of the skill sets that will take the foreseat now and into the future. Yes.
Thank you. Brad, this has been
very insightful. Yes.
For any listeners who may have thought that we were, on the forefront of thinking progressively about AI, proven today that we're not.
I want to figure out where I rank on the world's dumbest people.
You're on that list, but you're not on the same list that Dr. Dhillon is.
Yeah. Dr. Dhillon, this has been an absolute privilege. We really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us.
The pleasure is all mine as well. So I think thank you for extending this invitation. It's been a pleasure conversing with you guys on this very important topic area.
Well, it's been great. We've learned a lot, and hope that everyone has benefited from this. And as always, share some comments, some questions. We can pass those along and try and get some answers for you if you have more questions. You can be reached. You're on LinkedIn, and how else can you be reached?
Yes, my LinkedIn page. That's the best way to do it. It's LinkedIn. Just search for Gurpreet Dhillon, and it'll show up under UNT. Or my web page is dhillon.us.com. So
okay,
great, and we'll put a link in the show notes.
Absolutely.
To his LinkedIn page.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Dr. Dhillon. As always, appreciate everyone tuning in. Hope this has been good for you, and as you try to stick with us and be weeks ahead of the rest of the world here, and maybe years ahead now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Tuning in.